I'm Lauren, I'm one of the cooking technology experts at Kitchen Things, and today you're here to learn about steam combination ovens and why you need one. So first thing I've got to talk about is the fact that there are 3 different types of steam combination ovens that you can buy. The first one is just a steam-only oven. So all it does is steam. It doesn't have any elements inside the oven, so it's not as versatile as the other 2 types of ovens that we can buy. Behind me, I've got one of the other types of steam ovens on the market, and this is what's known as a steam combination oven. So it can steam just like a steam oven can, steam-only oven can, and it can also steam just as you would steam on the cooktop. So it's a very versatile oven, but it's also a regular oven as well. So you can dry cook in it as well. So you can cook a pavlova in it, or you can steam fish in it. So extremely versatile, the most versatile of the ovens on the market. And then the third type of oven is what's known as a steam assist oven. So this oven can just add some steam to a regular dry cook. Now that's really useful for breads and for meat cooking, but it can't steam your food. It can't steam what we're doing today. We're using the oven to steam the rice and steam some fish and steam a sticky date pudding. And we're going to do that all at once in the oven, which is one of the great benefits of a steam oven. Your steam assist oven can't do that. It can cook like a regular dry oven can, but with the addition of some moisture into the oven while we're cooking. So the most versatile of the 3 types of ovens is the steam combination oven. So it's really important that we get that idea in our head first off, because you need to know what sort of oven you want to buy. Now, I'm using this oven here in a steam assist mode at the moment. So what I'm doing is I'm cooking you some bread rolls in here using hot air and steam at the same time. Now, when we're adding steam to a regular cook, it has multiple benefits. One of those is for bread. Now, for instance, bakeries have been adding steam to their ovens for generations and generations and generations, and that creates a great crust. That steam creates a great crust on your bread and gives your bread extra rise. So what it does is it keeps the surface of the dough moist while it's having its final rise, which is called the oven spring. And when you pop your bread in after its rise, it has a final rise, and that bread pops up because it's able to do that because the surface of the dough is kept moist so it doesn't harden early. And so a lot of people do this already in their ovens by doing things like spraying water into their oven or adding ice into their oven when they put their bread in, which is really a bit of a faff actually, and can be quite dangerous as far as getting burns and things like that. Believe me, I've tried it. But this is just really easy. It's all automated. You just go in and choose steam combi, and away you go. And you've got that steam added to your bread. Now, if we were cooking meat in our oven, that's in a whole nother kettle of fish. So we still want the browning on our meat because that's where we get the flavour from. But by keeping the moisture in, we're going to keep the moisture in the meat. So keeping the moisture in the oven keeps the moisture in the meat. So that's the real benefits of your steam assist oven, and that's what we're using that part of the oven to cook our bread rolls. In the meantime, I'm going to be steaming in this oven. We're just using steam, and we're going to do a fish curry and some rice, and we've got some sticky date puddings that are waiting for us to turn the oven on. Now, we're going to steam this at 100 degrees, which is you could do steam at 100 degrees on the cooktop as well. In the steam oven, we can steam at below 100 degrees, which is one of the really big benefits, and I'm going to go into that in a minute. But in the meantime, let's get this into the oven. And it's really, really simple. So we've got some rice, and we're going to put some water in here, and then we're just going to give that a bit of a stir to even it out in the tray. Now, you can put this into a serving bowl. I steam my rice in the bowl that I'm going to serve it in often when I'm cooking. Today, because we're cooking quite a large amount, I'm using the tray that comes with the oven. So we're going to open the oven. Now you notice that the oven's actually not on. We're going to start with a cold oven. So this saves us, not only saves us time, but there's a real benefit in doing this because the oven's only going to come up to 100 degrees. It's only got steam doing the cooking. So if we waited for the oven to fill with steam while we were prepping our food, and then we open the door to put the food in, we've lost most of that steam anyway. So this is, for many applications, it's, you just start from a cold oven. So let's get the rice in here. We're going to pop the rice in the top. And we've got a very easy fish curry. So this one I've just used some ling today, but you can use monkfish or any firm fish for this recipe, and some vegetables. And I've just tossed those in some yellow curry paste. And then I'm going to add some seasonings to that. So we've got a bit of ginger and garlic, some lime juice, some soy sauce, some mirin, which gives a little bit of sweetness, some sesame oil, and some coconut cream. Very, very easy recipe. And then we just pop the whole thing into the oven and set and forget.
With the rice line, did you put, what's your ratio?
So 1 rice to 1.5 water is what we use in a steam oven. That's for jasmine or basmati. If you were going to use a brown rice or a more sticky rice, you'd use a different quantity and the cooking times would be slightly different. Now, this oven, for instance, has a program for rice. So I could go in and choose the program for rice and it would just cook the rice. But because we're cooking all this together, I'm going to do this manually. So we're going to pop our fish in here. Now, if we were cooking a smelly curry and a dessert at the same time, you would think that the flavours and odours would interact with each other. But when you're cooking with steam, they don't. They're encapsulated within the dish. So I can guarantee you won't have curry flavoured dessert. So we're going to go here. You can see that we've got oven functions, we've got steam functions, and we've got all sorts of extras that we can go in here as well. But we're just going for steam at 100 degrees today, and I'm just going to press start. And when that gets up to temperature, it will beep, and then I'll set a time for that to cook. That's going to take 25 minutes once it comes up to temperature to cook. So very, very easy recipe to do. Now let's talk about why you would want a steam oven, because many of the things that you might be using for steaming now, you've already got. For instance, a lot of people steam on their cooktop. Now, why, if I can steam on my cooktop, why do I need to pay all that money for a steam oven? Well, there are huge benefits. One of them is volume. So number one, you can see here I've got 3 levels of food in that steam oven cooking all at once. If I had this all on the cooktop, well, I probably wouldn't be able to fit it all. And I also wouldn't have the space for doing the desserts stacked. For instance, if you were cooking dumplings, when you're doing it on the cooktop, if you're doing it, in a wok with a steaming basket, you've really got enough space to do maybe half a dozen or 8 at a time maximum. You can do 200 at once in the steam oven. So volume of food is one of the really big benefits of a steam oven, because you can do a big volume of food at once. Number 2, I mentioned before, which was temperature. So to steam on the cooktop has to be 100 degrees. And it has to be 100 degrees because you need 100 degrees to create the boiling water. Now, in an oven, it's different. Yes, the steam is still created at 100 degrees. So in this oven, for example, we're cooking in an ASCO oven today. The water is in here. So the water comes from a canister that you refill with tap water. It goes from that canister down to a boiler. The water boils the water, so it's boiling it at 100 degrees, and it injects the steam into the oven cavity. But this is an oven with thermostats in it, so the thermostats can register what temperature the internal oven is reading and put cooling fans on. So it means you can steam at lower temperatures than 100 degrees, which is really important if you're doing things like steaming eggs or steaming delicate white fish. So if you were cooking really delicate white fish like teriyaki or snapper, you'd really want to drop the temperature maybe down to 90 or 85 degrees. And definitely if you're cooking eggs, you want to go about 80 degrees to stop your eggs curdling. And you can cook all sorts of things that you wouldn't have necessarily thought you could in your steam oven. You can do scrambled eggs, you can do poached eggs, you can do baked eggs, you can do rolled omelette, you can do custards. You can do all of those in a steam oven. In particular, you can do things that you would normally need to cook in a bain-marie. So say you were doing custards for creme brulees or cheesecakes. Normally you have to deal with a heavy water bath to protect that food if you're cooking it in a dry oven. In a steam oven, you don't have to do that. So that's a real benefit. The other benefit is nutrition. So when we're steaming on the cooktop, of course, we've got a perforated dish here with our food, but it needs to be perforated in some way for the steam to be able to get to the food. Now, what happens to the juices of the food that are in that perforated dish? Where do they go? They drips down into the water, and what happens to that? They go down the drain. Now, if we were steaming a whole lot of vegetables, for instance, or seafood, in a steam oven, we could still use perforated dish if we wanted to, but we can put a solid tray underneath it, and that's going to capture those juices so we don't lose any of that nutrition, all that nutrition that you're losing when you cook it any other way. Absolutely, you could, or you could just pour it back over the food that you're eating, either way. I do quite a lot of cooking with fish, and I'm steaming the fish to make a soup, and you can use the juices from the steamed fish in the stock that you're making the soup in. So I think our rolls probably need just another couple of minutes, so I'm going to pop the timer on. This oven's really excellent, by the way, has 3 different timers, so I can pop 3 different timers on, but this one I'm just going to pop these on for another 5 minutes. Our temperature's been reached here now, so I'm going to pop a timer on here for 25 minutes. And that's going to start counting down now, and at the end of that 25 minutes, everything should be ready all at once for us to come out. But you could put in different foods at different times if you wanted to. So, for instance, if you're cooking rice and salmon and beans, each one of those would take a different length of time to cook. So you would start with the rice, because that takes the longest to cook, and you would put that in. And then you could put a timer in and say, okay, in 10 minutes I want to put in my salmon, and then that timer would go off, and you could put another timer in and say, in 15 minutes I want to put in my beans. And so then you'll have everything coming out all at once. So you can cook your whole meal in the oven. And big volumes of food too. So what I sometimes do, I might have 8 or 10 people for dinner. I don't want to be standing all night over my cooktop. I want to be enjoying my guests' company. So I will pop everything in. So I'll do a sticky date pudding, for instance, similar to what we've done, but I'll do it in a big tray, enough for 10 people. And I might do that rice curry and fish curry. And I'll pop everything in. It's all ready at the same time, and I can be enjoying my guests' company.
Do you have to add more time and add more items in? So if you were doing 2 little puddings,
yes.
Is it going to take the same length?
No, it's going to take the same length of time. So it's very much like an oven would work. It's all about the density of the food, not the volume of the food. So if you were cooking, for instance, a whole tray of cauliflower florets, that would take the same length of time as 1 cauliflower floret. But if you were cooking a whole cauliflower, that's more dense, so that would take longer to cook. So it's density, not volume. It's very much the same way as a regular oven is.
And how long the water takes for the cooking? Do you need to add water?
So you may need to add more water. The canister in this particular oven will steam for about 45 or 50 minutes, which is more than most times that you're going to want to do steaming. But if you were doing an extra long steam, it will beep at you and tell you, add more water. The water is still in the boiler, it's just the water that is in the reservoir that's run out, and so you can empty that. Now, if you weren't at home, for instance, and it ran out of water, it would just stop if you didn't refill the canister, so you've got no risk of it boiling dry. It would just stop cooking. But that's a really good question. So we've gone over the temperature, we've gone over the volume, and those are sorts of things that make a real benefit over the cooktop. One of the other things when we're talking about volume of food is size of food as well. So for instance, one of the things I really like to cook is a whole fish. Now, if you've got a whole blue cod, for instance, that you're steaming, it's very hard to find a wok or a dish that's big enough to steam that fish whole. You end up having to cut it in half. And it doesn't look nice, but also by cutting it, you're allowing all of the juices that are inside the fish to be released a lot more easy, so you're losing some of the benefits. But because we're cooking it in an oven size, you can cook 2 or 3 whole fish at once if you want. So real benefit, particularly for our Asian customers who like to entertain, having that whole fish and being able to do it all at once without cutting it is a real benefit. Very gentle cooking, yeah, very gentle cooking. So one of the other things that people are trying to decide when they're redoing their kitchen is, do I have room for a steam oven? Do I need a microwave or do I need a steam oven? I've actually got a solution to that is better than any other solution. But if we're trying to decide between the two, many of the things that we do in a microwave are actually done better in a steam oven. There are a few things that a microwave definitely does better, but most of the things that people use their microwave for, a steam oven actually does better. So what do you use your microwave for?
Heat up coffee, steam some veggies.
Right, so steaming the vegetables, that's definitely better done in a steam oven. So when you're microwaving vegetables in a steam oven, you're not just steaming them. So the way microwave works is it targets the water molecule inside the food and it heats that up very quickly, and that actually evaporates moisture out. So the food is less moist when you cook it with microwave. These are our rolls. I'm going to grab these out so you can see that you can cook professional level rolls and lovely crispy crust on our rolls as well, because that steam helped with the rise. So we've got a very even cook and a lovely colour to our buns, but you get that crispy crust because the steam creates this change in the gel structure of the proteins in the flour. So as well as the extra rise, you get that crispy crust. So that real artisan look that you really can't get any other way than by adding steam. A lot of people do their breads in a Dutch oven and to get that crispy crust, and that's creating the same effect really, because it's keeping that steam inside that Dutch oven. But this is much more convenient because you can't do rolls inside a Dutch oven, you can't do baguettes inside a Dutch oven, you can only do a round ball shape loaf. So by having this, it makes your bread baking, you'll just keep eating lots of bread. Now when the bread goes stale, you've got another benefit with the steam oven, because refreshing your bread with steam means it basically turns your stale bread back to fresh. So you'll never have stale bread again. It doesn't go soggy. So just like we had the crispy crust created by the steam, when you add steam to the bread, people often think that it'll go soggy, but it doesn't, because those gels form a real crisp crust. So you get all that benefit of the moisture inside being replenished out of that stale bread, but keeping the crispy crust. Again, as well as that, pastry is also really crispy. So a lot of people think that I couldn't possibly be adding steam to pastry, now I'm going to get a really soggy pastry. With puff pastry, you get about 50% more rise in a steam oven, because the reason that pastry puffs is it creates steam in between the layers. So this is really assisting with the steam in between the layers of your puff pastry. And phyllo pastry, because of, again, that moisture creating and changing the gels in the starches in the pastry, means you get extra crispy phyllo pastry as well. So I definitely add steam to all my pastry cooks. Back to microwaves. So what else do you use your microwaves for?
My husband likes to do his porridge.
Now, so porridge is very quick in the microwave, but you know when we do porridge in the microwave, we have to stand over it and watch it ebb for that whole 90 seconds or 2 minutes, because it's likely to overflow, and then very quickly after that it turns to glue. And that's because of the way that microwave works. Now you can get beautiful porridge and oats, almost like a hot bircher muesli in your steam oven. Now it doesn't just take 2 minutes, it takes about 12 minutes to do your porridge in the oven. But I've just changed my timetable in the morning. Instead of having my shower and then putting my porridge on, I put the porridge in the oven, go and have my shower, come back, and my porridge is ready. And I can cook 4, 5, 6, 8 bowls of porridge at once. So I can cook the whole family's porridge all at once. So although it might take longer, it can actually be less time, because in your microwave you can only do one at once.
So it's the same sort of ratio?
Yes, I use exactly the same ratios. It's just being steamed instead of being. You can change things up. So if you can have one bowl, you might want cream and brown sugar in one, you might want juice and nuts in another one, you might want dried fruit in another one. You can pretty much do what you like, and you can do them all at once.
So you can use your own bowls?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can use the bowls that you were going to eat them out of, as long as they're boil proof. Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the real benefits of cooking with steam, is that you can reduce dishes because you can cook in anything that is boilable. So almost anything that's dishwasher safe, you can steam in. Thinner metals are going to food's going to cook quicker in them, because it's going to conduct the heat quicker than, say, doing things in a ceramic bowl. But for the majority of foods, it's not going to make much difference. When you get to things like doing things that are very quick to cook, like eggs, you can have to adjust the time. But for most foods, whatever you are going to eat them in, you can cook them in, or serve them to the table and you can cook them in, if you're just using just steam. You mentioned reheating a cup of coffee. You can do that in a steam oven, but you wouldn't. People wouldn't do it. So that's one of the things that a microwave is definitely better at. Popping popcorn is another that is better done in a microwave. You're never going to be able to do that in a steam oven. But a lot of people cook their rice in their steam oven, do sauces and custards in a steam oven. All of these sorts in a microwave, all of these things can be done in a steam oven as well, very gently.
Can I steam frozen food?
Yes, you can steam from frozen. Yes, so you can pop your fish in and steam it from frozen. You just add a little bit more time. Now, neither of you mentioned this, and that's probably because most people won't admit it, but a lot of people use their microwave for defrosting. And we don't like to admit it because we know it doesn't do a very good job, but it's super convenient to be able to defrost a chicken breast in 25 minutes. You can defrost in a steam oven much faster than you could on the cooktop, leaving it on the bench or in the fridge. It's not as fast as the microwave, but a chicken breast would probably take about 50 minutes to defrost with steam. And the reason it's faster is that steam penetrates quicker than dry air. So if you wanted to test this out for yourself, I wouldn't recommend it, but you can tell how long can you leave your hand over a pot of boiling water compared to putting your hand into an oven that's 100 degrees. And you can definitely leave it in longer because it takes longer for that heat to penetrate. So cooking with added steam is also faster because that steam is helping penetrate the proteins. So it reduces the cooking time when you've added steam to a regular cook as well. So you're cooking a roast chicken, it might take an hour 15 in a dry oven, would only take an hour when you add steam to it, because it's reducing the cooking time because of that moisture. As well as that, you're getting a much better result with your, because it's retaining the moisture inside your meat, but also giving you a crispy skin as well. One of the things that steam does is that it helps render fat quicker. So you also get a really crispy result, very similar to, say, a rotisserie. Now, if you've ever been in a supermarket when they're getting their rotisserie chickens out of the oven, you'll see that there's a lot of steam. That's because they use steam in their rotisserie. So the rotisseries in the supermarket are all steam ovens. So you can get that exact same result at home. Much healthier because it's rendering out that fat quicker. One of the best ways to cook chicken in a steam oven is to put it on a rack. So instead of putting it in an oven tray, put it on a rack and put a tray underneath. You're using the hot air and the steam in combination. It's almost like a rotisserie, because instead of the meat revolving with the heat here, the heat's revolving around the meat, but also allowing the fat to drip out and render out, and it renders out much quicker, so you get a great result with those. The reducing the cooking time is really, can be really important. So for instance, a couple of Christmases ago, I had 27 people for Christmas with one oven, and I needed to cook a very large 7.5 kilo turkey and a ham. Now, my options were get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and start cooking, or use my steam oven to its advantage. So that 7.5 kilo turkey, if I'd cooked it in a dry oven, would have taken about 4.25 hours to cook. What I actually did was I steamed the turkey. So I used steam at 100 degrees to cook that turkey for the first 40 minutes. That almost cooked the turkey all the way through the meat. Of course, it didn't look nice and it wouldn't be very appealing, and it wouldn't be as tasty because browning is flavour. So what I did at the end of that is I turned it on to Combi steam. So I used hot air and steam at a higher temperature than I normally would, so 210, with lots of steam, and I used the meat probe that the oven comes with, so that I knew that it would get to the exact temperature that I needed it to get to, but giving me that really crispy result, and it took just over 2 hours. So it almost halved the cooking time that it would have taken, and that meant that I could have both my ham and my turkey for Christmas without getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
So you could actually do a par cook and use steam oven, so if you were going to have a barbecue?
Yes, that's one of the real benefits of a steam oven as well. So one of the functions that I haven't talked about that most steam ovens have is a sous vide function. So I don't know whether you know what sous vide is traditionally, but it has been used in restaurants mainly up until the last couple of years, where it's become more popular domestically. Vacuum sealing food and immersing it into a water bath at a very stable temperature so that it doesn't overcook, but tenderises, is the main benefit of sous vide cooking. But we can use it for many different ways in a steam oven, and one of them is par cooking for the barbecue. So, for instance, most of us when we're barbecuing chicken tend to overcook it because we are worried about undercooking it. Pop it in, use your temperature probe or the sous vide function to cook it to 75 degrees, which is food safe, and then all we need to do is pop it on the barbecue and brown it. It also saves time and means you can be entertaining with your guests. Cooking a steak, using the sous vide function to cook a perfect steak. Sear your steak to start with. You can vacuum seal it if you want to, particularly if you want to put some herbs in that bag with it. Pop it in and use the sous vide function and choose the temperature that you just below what you want to serve it at. So if you wanted it to be medium rare, for example, which is around about 57, 58, you would cook that steak at 55. Now, if we're doing it on the barbecue, you're going to get a lovely crust very quickly, and then it's going to be really very well done, and then gradually get less well done till it's medium rare in the centre. So it's got this graduation of from well done to medium rare. If you want it all medium rare, but just a crust, we can do that by quick sear and then into the oven at 55 degrees. And you can cook it for hours if you want to, 2 or 3 hours. All that 2 or 3 hours, it's tenderising the meat, but never getting it past 55 degrees. Then take it out. You can give it another quick sear if you want to. Often you don't even need to. Serve it. It's going to be that perfect steak, crust on either side and perfectly cooked through, all the way through. And everyone will just be asking you to come for dinner and having steak all the time, because you'll have those perfect steaks every time. Right, let's see how many minutes we've got to go. So we've got 7 minutes to go. I don't know whether you can smell a little bit of that lovely curry flavour coming out of the oven, but you won't have any of that interaction with the flavours that are inside the oven. You probably can't see, but our puddings are pretty well risen. They're nearly cooked. It's very hard to overcook a steam pudding in the oven, so we can just leave that there. One of the things that you can cook, talking about Christmas as we were, was our steamed Christmas pudding you can do in your steam oven as well, is save boiling for hours on the cooktop. You can cook it very quickly in the steam oven. It'll take about 40 minutes to cook a basin size steam pudding in the steam oven. But if you want that really rich caramelisation that is traditional in a steam oven, in a Christmas pudding, pop it on for longer. And the longer you cook it, the more caramelised those sugars get inside the pudding. So you can have that steaming for 3 hours.
What else desserts that we can do in the steam oven?
So custards is one of the wonderful desserts that you can do, and as I mentioned, you don't have to worry about bain-maries. You can just pop them straight in. So creme caramels, creme brulee, cheesecakes, all of those types of things that you would normally need protecting with that little bit of extra moisture.
Is there any particular order? Do you have to put them at the bottom or at the top, or does it matter where you put them in the oven?
Well, the only thing you really have to worry about is if you've got a perforated tray which is going to have things dripping. But what I always recommend is if you're cooking rice in particular that needs space to evaporate, so don't put a tray too close to the rice because that will inhibit that evaporation. So I've put the rice on the top, whereas you might normally think I'll put the rice at the bottom. You absolutely can put the rice at the bottom, but not if you've got a very big tray above it. I would always recommend putting the rice at the top of the oven to allow for that evaporation, and don't cover it completely with another tray. Right. It does. And it just makes your life easier. And for me, it's the making life easier that's really important. If you're going to spend this sort of money on an appliance, you want it to make your life easier, not harder.
And you get a consistent result.
Consistent result. And also, it's your regular oven as well. Remember that you've got all of the cooking functions that you would have in any other full multifunction oven. So you've got the multifunction oven, you've got a steamer that can go very low. So for instance, this one goes as low as 35 degrees. So what would you use steam at 35 degrees? Well, I used it for dough proving, for one. Defrosting, again, is another use for the steam combi. Quicker because the steam penetrates those low temperature steaming functions. But it also goes up to 230 degrees. So you've got the ability to go from very high to very low. So really versatile. And it comes with a lot of programs. Most of the steam ovens come with programs, regardless of what brand, that are there to help you. Particularly when you're new to steam, you might not know exactly how long to cook rice for or how long to steam beans for. So they've got programs to help you with that as well. So I think I've covered just about everything that I would normally cover of the benefits of steam and a steam oven over the cooktop and over the microwave. Have you got any other questions?
Can we steam dumpling?
Yes, absolutely. So as I mentioned, dumplings on the cooktop, a great way, and it's how we would traditionally steam them, would be on a cooktop, but we're really limited to the number that we can steam at once. Now, if you wanted a crispy dumpling, you can also get that in a steam oven by using the steam Combi function. So we can have a lot of steam inside the oven, so we can have 75% humidity, but we can have heat as well. So with those you can still get a crispy dumpling, but it'll be crispy on the top instead of on the bottom. So when you're doing it on the cooktop, you get the crispy bottom. When you do crispy dumplings in the steam oven, you get a crispy top. So you can have both steam buns as well, absolutely. So anything that you can steam here, you can steam. Shellfish is a real, once you've had shellfish steamed in a steam oven, you'll never go back to any other way. So if we're doing mussels on a cooktop, for instance, we're really not steaming them, are we? Because they're on the bottom of the pan and the pan is super hot. So yes, they're very fast, they open very quickly, but they can be quite tough, mussels. That ligament can be quite tough. If you do them in a steam oven, you do them at about 80 degrees, they take a bit longer to open, they take about 10 minutes to open, but the whole mussel is super tender, so you get none of those tough ligaments. And the juices you can capture underneath, so you can use those juices for a sauce or a stock or a soup as well.
So you just put them on a tray?
I just put them on a perforated tray. So you can put them on a solid tray if you want to, but I always put mine in a perforated tray. And that just means that with the juices that come out, if there's any sand or anything, it usually gets caught on the top layer and doesn't go down to the bottom layer. Scallops as well take about 3 minutes to cook. I was just thinking last night actually of getting some scallop shells for Christmas so that I could serve up, I could cook them in the shell, yeah. Little bit of lime, ginger, or ponzu, and serve them. So easy, so really, really nice. Any other questions that you've got for me? I'm going to mention to you that I had a solution for those people who really need a microwave as well as a steam oven. So you mentioned you use your microwave for heating a cup of coffee. That's not really easily done in a microwave, in a steam oven. But behind me, the oven that I use to cook the rolls, this is actually ASCO's 5-in-1 oven. So it is a microwave as well as a steam Combi oven. So it has 5 functions. Right. So, I'm going to grab this to get these out. Here are our sticky date puddings, and I haven't made the sauce. I think Fiona might come and make the sauce for us while I dish up the fish. So that's our sticky date puddings. Here is our curry. Now this just needs a little stir. Oh, that's not plugged in, Fiona. No, you have to use this one. Here is our fish curry. So you can see how easy that was, and you'll be able to taste when you come and taste it how crispy the vegetables remained, but the fish is really super tender and juicy because it's cooked in steam. And there's our perfect rice. All cooked in 25 minutes in the steam oven Super convenient, and I could be talking to you throughout this. So if this was you doing the cooking at home, you could be enjoying your friend's company while your oven was doing the work for you.
Can you eat the rice straight away, or do you have to leave it?
No, you can eat it straight away. Yep, it's all as. In fact, I think it's better than rice cooked in a rice cooker. So it's beautifully soft and delicately cooked consistently, and the grains are all separated. So we'll dish up for you and enjoy.